Welcome back to the Sideline Live podcast. You can follow us over on Twitter and Instagram at the Sideline Live. We'd love to hear from you. On episode 101, I'm delighted to be joined by Olympic bronze medalist Aifric Keogh. This episode was recorded a number of weeks before her recent silver medal win at the European Championships. During our chat, we discuss her career, challenging setbacks, dropping out of rowing, training, mentality, and so much more. I hope you enjoy. Hi Aifric, thanks a million for joining me on the podcast.
No problem. Thanks very much for having me.
Before we get into everything, I like to give the guests a bit of a 30-second minute intro to kind of explain themselves, give their kind of elevator pitch to those who might not know who they are.
Great. Yeah. So my name's Aifric, obviously. My sport is rowing. I began rowing, 2004, I think it was, 2005. So it was when I was in secondary school at the Jazz in Galway, and had never seen a boat, never even seen rowing. Had heard of it kind of just through extended family. It was just after, I think it was maybe the Athens Olympics, and a far off kind of relation was through marriage was rowing in that. So that's how I knew of it. So when I went to school, I had no friends. I came from a primary school that was like maybe 10 kilometers away from my secondary school. So I just joined every club: basketball, hockey, rowing. And rowing was one that stuck. Represented Ireland as a junior, Europeans, under 23s, and then moved into the senior ranks. So having just kind of progressing over the last maybe 15 years throughout the ranks at Rowing Ireland.
Okay, very good. Why rowing for you? I know you mentioned all the other sports you played and the fact you joined every club, but why did it stick out for you? And was it something you just were naturally good at? Sometimes that's the reason why we play sports, is we're good at something.
Yeah, I think a couple of reasons. I think I just loved hanging out with my friends, and rowing unfortunately gives you a lot of opportunities to do that because there's so many sessions. So yeah, like when I was in school, I would prioritize kind of this like sports that had fewer sessions, and I would go to them during the week. And then because there were so many rowing sessions, I was still able to hit kind of 5-6 sessions of that outside of the other sports. So then like the other sports had much shorter seasons, so I would be rowing well into the summer after school. And then I think just as things got more serious and we started doing quite well with it, representing Ireland, doing trials, things like that, I think I just saw more of a future in it, and I saw more progression in it. So yeah, I think they were kind of the few reasons why I stuck at it.
I know you quit rowing in sixth year. Can you explain kind of how that all happened and kind of the thought process behind that? Obviously you went back to it clearly, but at the time, why did you quit?
Yeah, so I think I had been doing it, let's say about 6 years, nearly 6 years at that stage. And up until that point, we had been rowing in like big boats, which would have 8 people. And we went in other boats too, but our priority would have been the bigger boats. And kind of like I said, just would have spent a lot of time with my friends. And when we were in Leaving Cert, a couple of people were too old to actually represent the school. So you have to be under 18 at a certain time. So, that kind of awkward birthday, the wrong side of January kind of business. So a lot of them were kind of too old. And we would have also rowed with people in the year above us in school. So they had then left the school also. So we just basically, the group kind of fizzled out a lot. There were very few of us left. And I got put into a group with the younger girls below me. So that was kind of quite a big kind of jump for me, like in the wrong direction maybe. And I think, yeah, you're kind of getting to that awkward age as well then, where like, people are starting to go out, there's a lot of 18th birthday parties and lots of pressure on exams. And I just wasn't really loving it anymore. I wasn't getting the same enjoyment. Like rowing is kind of miserable a lot of the time. And unless you're having, the crack with your friends or actually enjoying it and kind of winning, it's kind of hard to stick at it. So yeah, in one sense at the time I kind of thought, oh, I'm done. Like, I don't want to go back. I didn't really, I kind of wanted to have a real normal life and go out with my friends and, not kind of be tied to the sport forever. And then I was also training in a single, so that's a boat by yourself. And I just had zero interest in that. Like, just kind of really missed like feeding off the energy and kind of the hype throughout the boat. And I think I felt a bit vulnerable in it too. You know, a lot of people were like, oh, you have the potential to win the junior single, be the fastest girl. And I kind of think I was just a bit scared to kind of put myself out there and actually go for that, you know, and risk being upset maybe, or, you know, losing. Because we always had this, like when I was trialing the trial with a second person. So it's kind of like win together, lose together. Or when we raced in big boats and it'd be the same thing. It was just a real kind of foreign concept to me to be kind of out there competing by myself, and just didn't really enjoy it. So yeah, long story short, lots of reasons, but they were kind of the main ones. All right.
And when did the love come back? What brought you back to the sport after everything you've just said there?
Yeah, so I think I eventually walked away kind of around March time, in my 6th year in school. So like I did kind of do a lot of the season, the winter season, like the worst part. Yeah, exactly. And so then I, you know, had all these big plans to go studying every day, and sure, just slept in all the time. Just didn't really do anything. You know, so I had my fun, started going out for the 18s, didn't have to get up at 7 a.m. on Sundays. Went on a leaving cert holiday. Kind of, I'm actually even afraid to say this, went to Oxygen. I don't know if anyone even knows what that is. That's electric picnic for people born before a certain time. Yeah, so went to that for my 18th birthday. Yeah, and just had like a summer of, you know, had friends, fun with friends, and then it kind of got a bit boring after a while. It was just, you know, I started to realize it's the same thing over and over again. And I knew the coaches in NUIG, and a couple of girls I'd rode before it were already there, and didn't have my leaving cert results or anything like that yet, but I kind of knew that I'd end up there in some shape or form. So just started training with them in the middle of August, just to kind of get back moving, get a bit fitter. And yeah, it just didn't look back from there then. Did 4 years in NUIG, and then moved on elsewhere after that.
That's actually something a lot of athletes speak about, is when they're in when they're in their training in these high performance environments, they're like, God, what is it like not to have to get up at 7 on Sundays? And then they do it for like a couple of weeks, and they're like, is this it? Like, it's kind of boring. I might go back to the high performance environment and all those training and gym sessions I have to do.
Yeah, I mean, like you end up getting up at the same time you'd be coming home from training anyway. So you're not gaining this really long day that you think you're going to have. Well, for me anyway. So, I mean, yeah, I love a lion. Don't get me wrong, but I feel a bit more productive when I'm out training most mornings.
Yeah, you've spoken about the process in a couple of interviews. When did that process start for you, and when does that thought process come into it, that, you know, it's very much kind of this journey that you're going on, and the steps you have to take to get to your goal? Was that around the teenage years? Was it something that maybe in your 20s that you started to really take it very, very seriously and look towards the Olympics?
I think like in school, when I was rowing for much different reasons. Obviously, like I've said already, you know, having fun, hanging out with my friends. When I went to NUIG, I think I started to get a bit more competitive, and within myself, you know, I wanted to improve my own times, my own scores, like things in the gym. And I think I was getting quite frustrated because we weren't that fast as a team. And, you know, I'd always been told by a couple of coaches, you know, you should consider senior international team. And like I had done the juniors and all that. That's quite a different process what it was at the time anyway. You know, you stayed in your club a lot, and you just kind of did the odd race every now and then to get selected. Whereas if you wanted to make an under 23 team or a senior team, it's a much longer process. It's a lot of up and down to Cork. It's a lot of testing. And when I look back now, I think, like I said already, I just felt a bit more exposed as an individual athlete rather than, can I make this boat go fast? So I kind of stepped away from it, and I just wanted to kind of get fast as an athlete. And I kind of ran into another kind of phase of like, am I even enjoying this anymore? I was putting so much into it, and I wasn't really getting a whole lot out of it at the time. And it was only when there was a change of hands after, would have been the London Olympics, I suppose. Yeah, after the London Olympics, Rowing Ireland got a new high performance director in. Morton Esperson, and he just wanted to get as many people involved as possible. There was like a not brand new, but there was this amazing facility down in Cork, empty. There was no athletes there, and he was like, I just need to get people in the doors, and whether they're good or not is another story, but I just need to get them down here and get them training. So he was like, just like cold emailing people, like names that he'd seen, photos that he'd seen, being like, I've seen you've rowed for Ireland before, like how about you come to a camp, or things like that. So he eventually paired me up with a girl who kind of had fallen out of love with the sport as well. She had been much more successful than me. She had already kind of been involved in the system, tried to make it to London Olympics, didn't make it. We were I think there's only a year between us, but so she was from Galway too, so we just started training together in Galway, and it was kind of casual. It was nothing, too high performance at that stage. It was just, I think, the both of us trying to like enjoy the sport again. And eventually that summer we went to the under 23 world championships together with two other girls, and we just had a great summer. Like, I kind of think, looking back now along my journey, a lot of my success is linked to like when I'm really enjoying it and having fun outside of the boat too. So yeah, that summer kind of made me think, okay, maybe I do want to kind of give this a proper go. We were quite unfortunate. We came fourth at the World Championships. We had a bit of a mishap in the last like 200 meters, I think, where we clipped a boy in the racing lane, and that kind of, that threw us off. So I remember at that moment on the finish line being like, okay, I'm obviously very disappointed, but this is definitely something that I want to continue to do. So that's kind of where it all started. And like, that was 2013, and I didn't see another taste of success for another like 6 years. So it was definitely a process. It was definitely a journey. But yeah, I think it kind of all kicked off around then.
When you're going through, let's say, something like those 6 years, and when things aren't going your way, where do you get the enjoyment from it? What keeps you involved? Because I suppose a lot of athletes, particularly at that age, again, it's, when you're in your mid-20s, I have friends of mine going abroad travelling, and when you're not going away, you get serious FOMO. And even just when maybe particular people that don't understand rowing be like, come on, what are you doing, come off to Thailand or whatever. Like, what kept you involved for those years? And was it looking back on that enjoyment piece that you referenced there, with you do your best when you're enjoying it?
Probably not, because I probably didn't enjoy it a whole amount during those years. Yeah, I mean, obviously it was a long 6 years with lots of ups and downs, and sometimes I loved it and I kind of walked away for short periods a couple of times. But I think for me, when I moved down to Cork, I moved down after that fourth place. I had a final year of college, and then after I graduated, I moved down. So I moved down in 2015, and yeah, I kind of came down, and I didn't want to go put all my eggs in one basket. I started doing a master's in UCC, so just to have kind of something outside of rowing, outside of training, to kind of keep me a bit sane. And like, that was probably a bit, I don't know, naive of me, because like I was never gonna progress that quickly if I had something as kind of taxing as a master's going on. But still, that was the decision I made. And yeah, I think I kind of expected it to happen a lot quicker, but I just don't think the setup was right for me, for someone like me to come in. I think at the moment we have a massive group of people. We have so much competition. We have a really tough program, and that really progresses people quite quickly.
Okay.
But when you have a small group, and it was a different training program, and there was quite a large gap between the top crews and people coming in, that like it was quite difficult to make an impact. But yeah, I think what kept me there was, I think, having something outside of the sport, having that master's, and eventually rowing, eventually a job too. So yeah, I think having something outside of the sport, and also I had a lot of friends down there eventually, that people I kind of met through all the years rowing. My boyfriend moved down eventually. He started coaching rowing as well. So I just kind of had a good setup that kind of allowed me to think long term. rather than looking for that kind of overnight success.
Yeah, that's actually something. I was interviewing Chloe Mustaki yesterday, and she's just turned professional and she's going to the UK. But it's kind of like that, as a professional athlete, it's very, when you don't have anything outside of the sport, sometimes it's very difficult to perform if you're not enjoying life outside it. Is that something that you found that, as an athlete, you find it better to have other things outside of the sport that you can kind of turn to, let's say when you're not going through a good, you haven't had a good day training or you haven't had a good race, you can kind of turn around and have something else to look at?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's actually very difficult for rowers to find that because we have such a demanding schedule. And you're kind of like, for me at the moment, I'm doing 2 sessions a day, one in the morning, one in the evening. And like, we left the house at whatever, 7:30 this morning, and I didn't get back until 12. And it's just, they're really time consuming. So to find something that you can fit between that window of maybe 12 to 3 or 4 o'clock when you have to go again. And it's also time where you're like, oh, I'd love to just go back to bed. So it's good for you, and in the long term you'll be happy you found something. Maybe it's a bit of work or it's a bit of college or something like that, but it's just really, it is difficult to do it over a long period of time. And I think for me, I went full-time training in 2019-20 that season, thinking that would be our Olympic qualifier and our Olympic Games. And I think it is necessary coming up to that kind of, I suppose, level of competition to go full time, just because purely if you're in a boat with 4 people, it's really difficult to match up schedules and everyone has to kind of prioritize training. Whereas at the moment, we're all kind of running off in different directions for meetings at this time and work at this time. And it kind of does get a bit difficult to kind of line up our schedules. So I think overall, in general, yes, I think it's really important to have something. But I suppose when the time is right, you do kind of need to prioritize your sport, whether that's at a certain time of the season, like coming up to your racing or kind of game season, or just if it's an Olympic sport, like at times of the cycle.
Of everything you do, Aifric, whether it's your preparation, what you do away from training, is there anything that you can kind of pinpoint, or a couple of things that you can attribute your ability to, that you just, like, is there anything that you just kind of say in your mind, this is why I can perform, it's because I do X, Y, and Z? Is there anything that you found that has just helped you with your performance?
I think it kind of depends. Like I said, if you're running off to work and things like that, you really need to be on top of your recovery and have like your shakes or your lunch or your food like in the car ready to go. Like a lot of preparation and organization needs to go into that side of things. And sleep as well, I think, is just a really important thing. I think it's just about, in general, like, it's the full picture. Like, there's no point kind of bashing up and down the lake or the river, like training really hard if you're not recovering. And recovery can kind of come in so many ways, of like not being stressed and not getting very caught up in like your speed on that day and kind of worrying, oh, this person's faster than me today than they were yesterday. Like, you've no idea what's going on in anyone else's boat. So just to kind of focus on yourself and not to get caught up in that. And then, like I said, there's the nutrition side, and also just sleep is so important. And whether that's a nap during the day or going to bed early, I think, yeah, that's something that really makes a difference. And also, I think if you have the opportunity, which I don't think a lot of us do at the moment, if you have like that Sunday off, like just doing something that kind of, I suppose, refreshes you and just takes you out of the sport, gives your mind a break, and just to kind of have a bit of normality. And I think that was something that we struggled with a lot in COVID, because we couldn't see anyone else besides ourselves. We were trying to stay in this bubble that we created to keep everyone safe. And sometimes that meant just going for coffee with like the same people you row with every day, and it's just like nothing, or we're just talking about rowing, so
yeah.
That's definitely something that we struggled with, but I suppose it just at the time, it was what we had to do.
Yeah, exactly. I spoke to Jessie Barr about this, and I'd be interested to get your perspective on it. Comparison as an athlete, when you're comparing yourself to others, whether it's within your training group or from other teams or countries or your opposition, What is that like? How do you deal with comparison? Is it something you shy away from? Do you acknowledge it? How do you deal with it?
Yeah, it's funny. Like I very much like with rowing, there'd be a lot of like data and times and things you can compare to. And even there was a race in Switzerland at the weekend that we didn't attend, but crews that we raced in Poznan a couple of weeks ago did go. So then we were like comparing, okay, well, if we beat X by 5 seconds and then this new team beat them by 10 seconds, then that means that, you know, we're in the middle, and you read into that a lot. But I do analyze it all, but then I kind of decide at the end of it, like, it doesn't really matter. You know, it's nice to know, and it's nice to kind of think about and to maybe be aware and to kind of speculate, okay, we really think this team will be fast, but not to kind of get too caught up in it. So I think for me, I do take comfort in just kind of being aware of certain possibilities, but not to kind of, I suppose, set them in stone and, you know, almost let them be 5 seconds ahead of me just purely because I've decided in my head that they might be. When the entries come out for our events, and you might not recognize the names of certain teams, like you would the odd time kind of go digging, try to find out what they've done before. And, you know, I would never be like, oh, they only came whatever at a certain, like, I would never take that for granted. You've no idea like the progression people can make over a season or two since maybe they lost race. So I think, again, it's just about maybe covering my bases and trying to find things out. But at the start of a race, it's kind of game on. It's anyone's race to win, really.
Mm-hmm. Focusing on yourself, even away from the team, and you know, you've mentioned the data, but how do you measure successful performance in the boat? Is there anything that you kind of look to? Is it a feeling? Do you look at the data? How do you measure successful performance for yourself?
I think, yeah, there's a lot you can focus on, and I think it kind of depends on the phase of preparation. Or like this year, I haven't trained as much as I did the year previously, just purely because I was in Dublin for, you know, 9 months of the year, and I was studying, and I kind of just also just needed a kind of a mental and physical break. So this year I am focusing a lot kind of technically, because I feel like I might not have that physiology base. And I'm like, okay, well, if I'm not fit, then I definitely need to row well. So for me, yeah, that would be a big focus at the moment for me, and just trying to work a bit smarter instead of harder. You know, I also don't have a big winter's training behind me like I usually would. So again, I kind of need to make sure when I came down into this environment that I stayed healthy, I stayed injury free, because a big jump in load could have been a risk for me, especially when, you know, I probably can't prioritize my recovery as much as I'd like to. But yeah, so I think whereas maybe 2019, 2020, it was all I was doing, you know, I was working really hard. I was really getting kind of caught up in the numbers. I knew I was probably like in the best shape physically with my physiology that I could have been. So it was all about how fast can I push, you know, any sort of distance. Like every session I was like, okay, the fastest I've done this particular session before would be whatever X, I'm going to try to go faster. So it was about, yeah, trying to be as the best I could be all around, I think. Whereas maybe now this year I'm kind of trying to be a bit smarter and kind of just ensure that I make it to the start line in pretty good shape, rather than kind of, you know, burying myself in a big workload and, you know, not coming out the other side of the week and having to kind of take a step back.
Mm-hmm. When you mentioned the physical side of things, is it when you get to your level of sport, and it's something I nearly mentioned in every episode, is it more of a physical or a mental challenge? What is it for you?
It's kind of both, I suppose. Like if you're suffering physically, it kind of creeps into you mentally a bit as well. And I think you just kind of need to, like during lockdown when we were by ourselves on the rowing machines, like the numbers just weren't there for me. Like they weren't the same. But I also had to acknowledge, okay, usually I'm not on the machine every day. Usually I'm on the water most days and supplement with the machine. Usually I'm in a group of 10 people and feeding off that energy. You know, there was so many variables that I if when it got mentally tough, I had to say to myself, look, any time is good enough. You just need to finish it. You're better off finishing it. You'll feel so much better for having completed the session. And whether that's you literally crawling like through the line, then that's okay. And I mean, it never came to that, but I think just that acknowledgement and acceptance, once I saw maybe the numbers slipped, that I was like, doesn't matter, just finish the session. I would almost start to kind of visualize that I was out in the water and like not look at the screen, not really pay attention to the numbers, and just kind of put myself mentally like in the boat and kind of surrounded with a group of people to kind of get me through. I think though in general, like if you're like, let's say this year, like we're coming off the back of kind of the great success that we had last year. I kind of had no idea where we would land this year. And if you kind of think about that too long, you kind of let that eat into you a bit, and you could potentially jeopardize, I suppose, your performance just by that kind of extra stress. And I think it's just about being a bit logical of like, well, look, it's not last year, it's not the same crew, we're not racing the same people, there's so many variables, there's no point kind of stressing about it. And I think once you kind of have that conversation with yourself and just be a bit logical about the situation, then you'll stay strong, I think, mentally, maybe through the middle of the race when things start to slip and things start to get a bit tired. But yeah, I think it's kind of, again, it's like a combination of both, and it probably depends on the athlete too. I kind of feel like most of the time I'm quite logical about it all and can accept myself, I suppose, no matter kind of whatever shape I'm in at that current time.
Okay, interesting. I want to talk about 2019. I suppose coming into that year, you kind of, in a previous interview, you said, this is my year. We were talking about the Olympics at the time, we're going ahead in 2020, but you had a really significant setback with blood clots.
Yeah. So 2018, the World Championships was like a huge success for Emily and I, and probably the best bit about it was that it wasn't really expected at all by us or by coaches, competitors, anyone. So we were on like a huge buzz after that, and came back in September, and the coaches decided that the whole team was going to focus on sweep rowing, which is the one blade each side, as opposed to sculling, which is two blades. So that they decided that if they put everyone into this group, it would become very competitive. We can make a very fast boat, a pair, and potentially have a four as well. So I was like, okay, they kind of essentially said, it's not Aifric and Emily anymore, it's the whole team. So it's like kind of survival of the fittest. And I think I just kind of put my head down and I was like, right, well, it's got to be me in my head, So just trained really, really hard, like stupidly hard, like kind of like what I've learned now that like, and I'm saying I train smarter rather than harder now, but then I was just being stupid, pushing every session, obsessed with speed, obsessed with being ahead. And yeah, just I think put myself into a really like bad hole physically. And then when I did get sick, that was, I think it was around May, I started to feel kind of unwell, coming up to Europeans, and just kind of got a head cold first, got a cough, kind of, I think it was masked by a lot of things initially. And it just took a long time to diagnose, and in and out of A&E, and eventually just kind of got diagnosed with, blood clots in both my lungs. And this was maybe, by the time it was diagnosed, I think it was the end of May, start of June, and the World Championships were going to be in the middle of August. So it all kind of fell apart, and that was the year I had planned in my head to kind of qualify the pair and kind of keep going, keep progressing, but that obviously came to an immediate stop.
When you're going through a setback like that, let's say initially, I know you did come back 6 weeks later, but when you're sitting in, let's say, the hospital bed and you've trained so hard and you've built this up to be the year, it's going to be my year, the success of last year, what is that like going through a setback like that? Does it initially change your relationship with sport? Does it alter it for you in a positive or a negative way?
Yeah, well, I think initially, like, I was so eager to kind of figure out what was going on so I could get back training. And then I think it was kind of a massive kind of slap in the face that, like, this is more than that now. Like, this was actually kind of a life or death situation. I was lucky that, you know, it was clots in my lungs and that it didn't develop into anything more serious, that it didn't kind of go into my brain or my spinal cord, anything like that. And, you know, it was kind of a wake up call that like sport isn't the be all and end all. And yeah, I was really disappointed. And I think, but just the shock of like kind of the serious health situation that I was in kind of removed that like initially. And it was all about just kind of recovering. And you know, like there was a lot of noise from like everyone had an opinion of, you know, how long it would take me to get back, and oh, it happened to this person before and it happened to that person and they became a better athlete, and there was just so much noise coming in. And I think I just really needed like to step back from the sport and maybe those people just to kind of recover mentally, physically in my own time and space. And it was difficult because the team had to totally reshuffle and kind of re-race to kind of find combinations, because they were going off to race the international season and the crews had kind of been set, and there was a lot of rejuggling going on there. So yeah, I think, you know, there was a lot of like external noise going on, and I just needed to kind of hide away almost in my house for a couple of weeks and just to take it easy. And I think that was kind of what allowed me to come back so quickly, and to just kind of remove myself from the situation and to come back when I was ready.
Would you identify yourself as an athlete before, you know, other elements outside of your sporting life? Is that something that you found maybe during your career might have evolved even from that particular setback, but is an athlete kind of the first part of your identity, or have you kind of reshuffled it during your career?
Yeah, it's funny. I don't know. I almost kind of, my friends be slagging me that like, if someone says, "Oh, do you know Africa?" and it's just like, "Oh, the rower," you know, like that's what people say to like link you or to kind of associate you to people who know who you are. But I mean, yeah, you know, when it's been kind of such a huge part of your life for so long, it's the first thing people ask you when they meet you: "How's training going? When's your next race?" You know, that's a big part of it. But I think, you know, yeah, it is going to be an athlete, and it's always going to be rowing. But I suppose I've always tried to have other things going on outside as well, so that I can talk about other things besides sport. But yeah, I mean, I've got a degree in microbiology, a master's, and now I'm working on a second master's. So I kind of like to think that maybe someone else, I'd be described as something else as an athlete someday.
Brilliant. I want to talk about COVID and the Olympics. For you, because of what had happened in 2019, it probably did kind of, in a positive way, did benefit you, because I know you would have been very late qualifying. There was a very late qualification. Was it April or May of 2020? So obviously
May, yeah.
May. So obviously what had happened was terrible. But for certain athletes, that extra year did really benefit them and really did benefit the overall team.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, again, when I came back, while I thought I had like, you know, fully recovered, taken my time, in hindsight, like I was on catch up and I was like, okay, I need to get back to where I was, I need to get back to the top, full stream ahead, X amount of months. I have to do this. This is my one chance. I'm gonna retire after, like, you know, that was my mindset. And I kind of put myself a bit into a hole again, and I wasn't really enjoying it. And then all the speculation of COVID and all that, you know, it was a long time before it was cancelled and before we were sent home. And we had done like a series of trials in northern Italy, of all places. We were there kind of as it was kicking off, and
Oh
we had
no.
just, yeah, we had done like 6 days of racing. And I think at the end of it, there was like point 0.4 between four of us at the top. And it was just, I was just like, oh God, can we just make a decision, please? Like, I just was kind of had my fill at that stage. So we went home and we were kind of walking through the airport a bit like, can we leave? Or like, no masks, no vaccinations. It was just a very odd time. But yeah, and then like, I think it was 2 weeks later, it all got called off. And I think for me mentally, it was great just to go home. I hadn't been home like for a long time like that in a long time. For the rest of the girls, some of them were new to the team. They had like graduated the year before, and this was their first year full time. So getting that extra year was great for them. There was another girl that only came in like Fiona only came in like the Christmas of COVID, so she actually got a full year. I think like her first international, if it had all gone ahead, her first international race would have been qualifiers and then the Olympics.
Wow.
So it was great for her to get those European Championships in. We actually got 2 in. And yeah, so that was great for her and us obviously as well. So I think it definitely benefited us as much. It was an absolute headache and pain in the arse and all that. It was great. And look, in hindsight now, this cycle is much shorter, so it's worked out.
Yeah, because I was interested. I heard you speaking into before that you were going to retire after the Olympics. Obviously, you haven't now, but like, what was the thinking behind that? Was it just there's so far to Paris? I'm going to leave it all out here in Tokyo.
Yeah, well, I think also when I kind of started thinking about that like I hadn't had the success, we started winning medals last year as it was all starting to wrap up. We got a bronze in like October, and then we went to silver. Then we obviously won the qualification regatta, and then we got to the Olympics and won. And like that, those 12 months, I had never kind of experienced racing like that and success like that. So then I kind of started to think like, oh, am I actually going to walk away when I've kind of come good? Like all that hard work has kind of paid off and I've seen success. So yeah, I mean, I just said, look, I'll reconsider it. I'll think about it for a while, and kept training. I knew I had to keep training, because if I took like a break and said, oh, I'll decide in January or February unfit, that would be a totally different decision. So I knew I had to kind of keep training and kind of make the decision as I went. And yeah, here I am in Cork preparing for the European Championships in a couple of weeks. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. What was it like though as an athlete last year, when there was so much there was so much probably anxiety within the camp about getting COVID on the way, or in the pre-camp, or in the middle of the Olympics? Like how stressful was that, apart from the normal pressures that you would see at the Olympics? I know it was different because there was no crowds, but like how difficult was that to try and navigate and take all the precautions? And I've heard before that Ireland were very, 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 very aware of what they had to do and were very safe in all of their preparations. But as an athlete, what was that worry like for you in the Tokyo Olympics?
Yeah, I think it was probably fine in Tokyo because it was so controlled. It was actually before, it was like being in Cork and knowing that everyone on the team was kind of responsible for everyone. And like, you're going to get pissed off seeing people off with their friends and being like, that's not fair. I haven't seen my friends in X amount of weeks, or like people going to see family. And like, it's ridiculous. Like that's fine. But like, you're so tired and you're so pissed off that you actually start to feel really annoyed at like your teammates, because you're like, we're trying to keep everyone safe. And it's like, well, I didn't go to this person's barbecue because, I wanted to keep everyone safe. And then you see someone else, on Instagram, or even you heard that they were in a certain place. And like that used to get really frustrating. But we actually were quite lucky that we didn't have too many cases in the team. So I think because we didn't kind of get those scares and those cases, that everyone kind of was flirting with the edge, I suppose, for a while. I mean, for the most part, we were quite safe. We didn't do a lot. We didn't do a lot because we didn't have the time to do a lot. But I think, there were a few instances probably where people might have gotten a bit frustrated. But, thankfully it didn't work. When we were away on camp, we were all kind of just enclosed with each other anyway. So I think we felt quite safe in those circumstances. And we were away for like 2 really big blocks of kind of 6 to 7 weeks before we left. So that kind of eased the anxiety a bit. I think then though, when we came home before we left, let's say, I think it was maybe 7 weeks before the Olympics, everyone obviously kind of had to move out and everyone had to bring all their stuff home, and sure, everyone wanted to see you before you left. And that time was kind of a bit difficult, just to be like, okay, I'll meet you outside, or we can go for a walk, and just try to like navigate it that way. But yeah, Tokyo I think was stressful, but you kind of like, you're doing your best, you wear your mask, you keep to yourself. So yeah, that was the story there.
Okay, interesting. I think you'd said this, and I don't want to misquote you, but you said, we're not superheroes, ordinary people do extraordinary things. Can anybody be an Olympian, do you think? Does it take a certain individual or personality traits? Is it, or can I be an Olympian?
Well, that's funny. I did say that, but Emer Lamb actually said it too, so she takes credit for it all the time. But I'm like, no, Emer, that was me. But yeah, I think like when I was kind of talking about that, it's like it's just hard work, you know. I mean, I do obviously. I'm quite tall. Emer's quite tall. Fiona's quite tall. Emily's not quite as tall, but you know, like we're tall. Like that's obviously suited to rowing. You know, I'm not saying that anyone can be a rower Olympian, but like I definitely think there's a sport out there for everyone based on just their kind of genetics and maybe their like physical makeup. Like, but yeah, like it takes, I think, more, I suppose, a personality trait. And like, if this is something that you really want to do, then you can do it. And it was only when Gary and Paul, I think, went to the Olympics, qualified the Olympics, they qualified by the absolute skin of their teeth by like a photo finish. And then they won an Olympic medal 12 months later, less. And I would have been on teams with them growing up. Like I would have been on junior Europeans teams, under 23 teams with them. And I was kind of like, okay, like it's possible, you know, like people I know can do it. Like you can start relating to them. Um, and I think, yeah, it's just about if you see like that whole campaign of like, you know, if you can't see, you can't be. And I think if as long as like these people are visible to everyone else, then I think it's definitely everyone's capable of trying. Like, yeah, not everyone, it doesn't work out for everyone, but I think everyone is definitely in a position where they can try chase that dream.
Hmm. You said a bit before in an interview as well about, particularly the final, you were prepared for any situation of that race. Is that something that's been, is that something you practice in the water? Is that something you've just talked about, video? How do you prepare for any sort of situation?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of things, you know, like when we do race pieces in training, in preparation, we usually race against like maybe the men's double or the girls pair or Sunita, and we're all certain speeds, like, and the coaches would start you based on your kind of world best time, so there'd be gaps between each boat. So some days we're getting chased down by the men's double, other days we're trying to catch the boats ahead of us. So like that's kind of all about scenario building too, and just kind of to rehearse uh like holding a boat off, or rehearse coming through a boat. So we kind of practice in that sense too, but also just again like looking at the data and starting to know, okay, well, we know a certain team has a slower start or a faster middle, or where their speed dips, and I suppose trying to kind of replicate our race plan kind of to people's strengths and weaknesses, and just trying to cover our bases in that way. But I think I think just in general, you've done so many race pieces, and sometimes, you know, Emer and I at the time might have called out, okay, let's pretend Dutch are beside us, so let's pretend GB are beside us. Now, the Dutch and GB could literally have been an Italian men's double that happened to be joining in with us that day, but in that moment in time, we visualized them as the crews we were racing, and it's just kind of, I suppose, about reacting to that call and seeing what we can do. And it doesn't always work. Sometimes we try do this great almighty like push or work and we fall to pieces. And but like that can happen on the day too. So I think it's just about making yourself kind of comfortable being uncomfortable and testing out new things. Because I think when you talk about it, it's one thing, but you actually have to kind of rehearse it under pressure, in the wind or against another team, to actually figure out, you know, what are our limits and what are we capable of.
Okay, brilliant. Can you paint the picture before the final for you personally and for the team? Are you acknowledging nerves? Are you acknowledging that it's Olympic final? Do you just treat it as another race? How do you approach such a major event that, it's really a dream to get to an Olympic final and to compete at that level?
Yeah, I think for me, I kind of have to just treat it as another race. I mean, it's it is weird waking up in an Olympic village, going down to a food hall with thousands of people, and it was like 5 a.m. and it was packed, you know. But I think, you know, our process before our race never changes. Like, you know, we get up, we have breakfast, we go for a pre-paddle before the race, just like a quick kind of 4 kilometers. We come in and get changed. Like we just have this kind of laid out time wise. It's written down. It's in a WhatsApp group. We all know what we have to do and where we have to be. So I think that kind of keeps you busy. It's not a case of where you're sitting in a room kind of rocking back and forth being like, oh my God, I'm at an Olympic Games, like kind of the phones are away. Like the time difference kind of helps in that way that, like your cousins and granny weren't ringing you to wish you luck and say the candles were being lit and all that. Like you're very much kind of switched off from that. And yeah, we're just kind of focused in on our own group and what we have planned, and we kind of try to make it as kind of lighthearted and fun as possible. So just like simple chat and like bring a speaker with us, play some music. We'd have a playlist ready, because it was so hot over there. We were getting slushies before we were going out, so just kind of like imagining there was something stronger in there, like just trying to make it as lighthearted as possible. And like that's not for everyone. Some people need to go quite internal and go for a walk and go for a stretch by themselves. But like I kind of feel like I need to distract myself and kind of keep keep kind of quite external and talk to people and kind of keep myself busy in that way. So for us, yeah, it was very much, we had like an air conditioned room, and we were sitting in there, and kind of people are kind of coming and going in phases as their racing kind of develops. So you might kind of overlap with another team or another crew. And I think you have to kind of be a bit conscious then that like your energy like might not match their energy, and not to kind of push your, I suppose, preparations too much on them. Like they might kind of want silence or whatever. So you kind of just have to be mindful of that. But I think then once it's just kind of us 4 left, we kind of just like let ourselves go and just kind of be like, oh, in an hour's time it'll all be over, or like just kind of not focusing on the work. We all know how hard it's going to be and all that, and just kind of keep it as lighthearted as possible. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah, there was a great podcast with Gina Archer-Smith, and she said before a big race, her coach was like, nice eyeliner or eyeshadow or something. It's just kind of, it's interesting how some people keep it very lighthearted, but then at the same time you're acknowledging that, maybe a different team don't like doing that. And what sort of tunes would you be listening to before a race? What's in the playlist?
Oh God, we've a lot. Yeah, we have a playlist that we made we had a 3-hour drive from our training camp base to our qualifiers race. So we had a big playlist, like loads of kind of classics, like the 90s, early 90s, of like a bit of everything, like rap, Westlife, like Spice Girls, Beyonce, big variation. So there's a lot of skips sometimes if it's not matching the vibe.
Okay, very good. When you're in the boat and in any race, maybe, or the final, whatever you think, but what's your self-talk like during the race? Is it very focused on the process, or are you just encouraging yourself on? What's that like for you?
So during the race, I'm very much counting strokes, staying in the process, 1 stroke at a time. I think if coming off the start, you can feel that's kind of almost where it feels the hardest, like, because you've kind of shocked your body that you're sprinting almost from a standstill, and then you're trying to find that rhythm. And I kind of find that the hardest part. And I just try to count through the strokes to know, okay, we do 30 high off the start or whatever it is. By the time I get through the next 30, I'm on my pace and I should feel a little bit better. Then I also kind of, my job at the moment is to make race calls. So I'm kind of instructing everyone, okay, this is our focus for this part. And it's really important in rowing to kind of, when you make a focus, that you make it at the exact same time. If someone does it a stroke early or at a different part of the stroke, then it'll just slow the boat down. So I have to be kind of very articulate and kind of clear, even though I can barely breathe, about what we're doing. You'd have that totally kind of nailed down anyway before you go out, and it's something that we kind of rehearse every session anyway, so everyone knows what's going to be called. So that's quite distracting as well, because you kind of have a job to do. In Tokyo, I was steering, so I was very focused on keeping us in the middle of the lane. And so yeah, in Tokyo, I was kind of steering, counting in my head just to kind of keep through the process, but also to keep an eye on where the other teams were. So I would kind of let us know maybe every kind of 90 seconds where we are in relation to the field, and if we've changed in a good way or a bad way, and or if we need to kind of get going. But at the moment I'm doing the kind of tactics and calling out the various kind of pushes along the way.
Okay, very interesting. Did it hit you? At what point did it hit you after the finals? Was it immediately? Did it take a few minutes, few hours? Was there any particular point that you realised I'm an Olympic medalist?
I think quite early on in the race, I kind of knew that the Dutch and the Aussies were gone. Like they kind of just dropped the field off the start. And then kind of once I kind of, like I said, kind of caught my breath coming off the start and had a look to make my first kind of position call, I kind of knew it was going to be us, China or Great Britain, that were going to take the bronze. So yeah, I was very much focused, like just picking them off kind of one at a time. And once we kind of, like, I suppose, tick China off, I was like, okay, it's just GB left now. And, you know, we've sprinted through them before. It was something that we knew we could do. We just had to do it. So I think we only kind of cleared them maybe with like 20 strokes to go. And at that point, you're kind of like, okay, just don't mess up. Just don't mess up. I just need to keep doing what I'm doing and it'll be okay. So yeah, I remember at that point being like, okay, we've got a medal unless something absolutely catastrophic happens. And then looking over and just doing a quick count every time. You just have to make sure there's 2 boats ahead of me and 3 boats behind me. That's just to double check. So yeah, quick counting, and then it was like, okay, we did it.
Brilliant. Is there anything, I suppose, when you're looking at the Olympics, and there's a lot of athletes that kind of came out to speak about any Olympic Games, but a number of people after Tokyo spoke about the stages after the Games you kind of go through where, you know, the weeks pass by, you know, you've trained how many years for this moment, you've now got your medal. Was there that, did you go through those stages process? I know you started your masters very quickly afterwards, but what was it like going through the aftermath of the Olympics, and was it a little bit of a letdown for you? How did you find that whole, how did you manage those stages after the Games?
Yeah, it's very weird. Like obviously we had, like, I think we had maybe 3 days in the village afterwards, which is great. Just to kind of relax, enjoy, and actually kind of get to speak to the other athletes, because I suppose we were kind of letting our guard down a bit then over the whole COVID thing, that we weren't too nervous to speak to other people. So yeah, we had a great time with the swimmers, actually became quite friendly with them. We got to go down and watch. Our final was one of the first days of finals for rowing, so we went down to watch the rest of the team the other days. So that was great, and it was nice. In one way, it was nice that no one was there, because usually after World Championships, all our families and friends would be there, and everyone would disappear quite quickly and go off into their own groups maybe. But we were, I suppose, kind of more so forced to stay together because we had no one else. So that was like actually kind of a nice time to have, you know. I'd say if our friends and family were there and the buzz of a medal, we'd probably all be dragged off in different directions. But no, it was nice just to kind of have each other. Coming home then, it was kind of weird. Like we kind of were saying, it was a bit of separation anxiety just to kind of be away from each other, as much as we were so sick of each other. It was very, very strange just to kind of be around your family again, and to kind of go home, like not to be kind of in Cork or Italy. And I remember it was my friend's hen party the following Saturday after I came home, and no one invited me because they were like, oh, she'll be so busy, she'll be, you know, like coming off the Olympics, she'll have all these things to do. And I was like, I have nothing to do, like, you know, like there's COVID, there's nothing happening, you know. And I was like, can I come? And they were like, yeah, obviously. So yeah, so I was like, they were like, oh, last minute add African. I was like, Jesus God, like, you know. So yeah, there was I think people were actually kind of like almost afraid to like be bothering us, and like, you know, and I was just like, no, like I'm free for once. I want to do things. So yeah, that was kind of a weird situation, but yeah.
What's it like training for years and years and years and being in the public spotlight? You know, everyone, every 4 years, everyone's like, oh my God, the Olympics. And then it's like, Okay, see you in 4 years, kind of from the media side of things, apart from people like me sending you a message, oh, will you come on the podcast? How do you find that? Like, is it weird them being so much in the public eye after maybe sometimes we don't maybe give
Yeah,
sports like rowing such attention?
it is weird, but I don't think it bothers us. Like we kind of enjoy being under the radar. And I think we were very much under the radar as well for Tokyo, which we kind of enjoyed. We were able just to kind of like focus on ourselves. But it is, yeah, it's odd because I'm like, we're racing the same people we always race. It's not a different race. It's just it's one every 4 years, but it's the same race, you know. There's no one new, there's no different rules, it's the same distance. Like so for us, it's very much the same. It's just it is odd that every 4 years it's like a huge deal. But I mean, you know, I've only done one, so I'm not sure. But yeah, like I suppose I think like people, it's funny, like people kind of at the time, you know, it was such a buzz and all the rowing, people forget so quickly, you know, and like we always feel even very like awkward sometimes, and like someone might spot us somewhere and we're in gear and they're like, oh, do you do sport? And you're like, yeah, yeah, we do. And like, no one has a clue. Yeah, no one has a clue. Like, and you're kind of like, it's just funny. And you're like, oh yeah, no, we do. Yeah, we do a small bit. Yeah. Oh, we
Just a
were
bit
racing.
socially,
Yeah.
socially.
Like, because they just don't have a clue. And you're kind of like, if you're in the back of a taxi or something, you kind of look at each other and just start like laughing, like, and just kind of carry on.
Yeah.
And they're like, do you know those brothers? And you're like, oh yeah, I do know them. Yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant. It for you, Aifric. I suppose rowing is so competitive. We've spoken about the data and picking, who's going to be in the boat. How do you deal with it being such a cutthroat sport? That every sport is cutthroat, but I just get the sense that rowing is really, really cutthroat.
Yeah. It like, it is cutthroat, but like, I think you kind of, for us, like we do so much training that like, for me, it's like I have so many opportunities to show I'm fast, you know, rather than like rely on that one time where they're just going to be like, no, you're not good enough. I'm like, okay, well, we do 2 sessions a day and we're here how many weeks a year, that like you just try and do your best for every session. That's what like my kind of mindset is. And like it is hard because sometimes you're pitched against like your teammates, and or you could be rowing with them for half a session and then they might just swap you with someone else, and you're like all of a sudden you want to beat the person that you were trying to perform with. So I think you just like, if in a training environment anyway, you just kind of have to not take it personally, and just it's for the good of the team, and everyone has good days, everyone has bad days, and to just kind of, I suppose, support each other as much as you can. And then I think internationally, like it is quite difficult to almost like once you've beaten someone, it's hard then to be beaten by them, if that makes sense. Like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously everyone's trying to be as the best they can and potentially win, but I kind of think in my head, it's like once you've ticked off one crew or one country, it's very difficult then to kind of process, oh, they've actually gotten faster or have we gotten slower? Like what's going on here?
Okay.
I think it can be quite frustrating sometimes with like conditions. Like sometimes you feel kind of hard done by with a lane or something like that. Like if the wind is blowing a certain way, but you have to kind of acknowledge like that you maybe got the better side of that at another time, or you know that it's an outdoor sport and these things happen, and you know you kind of just have to look for, like for me, I'm like, we have to be able to perform on a bad day. Like if something like this happens, we still need to be able to perform. And that's almost kind of what happened in Tokyo. You know, we didn't have a great race, and we still kind of said, okay, look, this isn't going well, but we still have half the race to turn this around, and we just need to do it. So yeah.
Very good. I'm going to move on to sideline 7, just conscious of the time. It's the same 7 questions at the end of every episode. Question 1, what is your favourite quote?
I don't know if it's my favorite quote, but I think it's just associated to me now at this stage, that there's one in my Instagram bio that girls shout at me randomly. But I think it's don't count the days, make the days count. So I think it's very much of like, I think everyone is always like counting down their life. You know, everyone's counting down to the next thing of like, oh, only 3 weeks to this like awful thing and then we're done, you know, like this erg test or this trial. And I'm like, stop counting, you know, we're gonna like run out of time. But I think also kind of you might have a certain time period ahead of you for a race, but like someone can get injured, something can happen where the boat can't get out. And, I think not to worry about the time missed, and then just like look at the opportunities you have and kind of make those sessions count. I feel like sometimes if we have a dry run of like 3 weeks uninterrupted training, you kind of almost get too comfortable and you're like, oh, we've so much time. We've like, whereas I actually feel like this year in my head, and like maybe the rest of the girls, it's like, okay, well, Afric's going to Dublin this day and this person has a meeting that day. We only have 2 sessions over the next 3 days. We have to make it work. And I think you're very much like more focused about kind of getting things done.
Is it kind of reminding you that, sport isn't here forever, and that, eventually you won't be rowing, you'll be moving on to the next phase of your life as well?
Yeah, I think everyone's just kind of in a hurry to like do everything, in life. And I think it's just about enjoy where you are, like not looking to like, oh, I can't wait to graduate, move away and get a job. Just like stop wishing your life away, like out of college or onto the next phase. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you ever see those things? I saw it on YouTube. I don't know what it is, but there's like this page and it has loads of dots in it, and it's like the weeks of your life. And every time you go by a week, you're like, I find that so weird. I would hate that.
Yeah. Like it was my birthday at the weekend and the girls got me a card and it was like, you've had this like many thousand days on the planet. And I was like, Jesus Christ. It's like, why are we counting all the time?
Brilliant. Question 2. What's the best sporting event you've been to? And you can pick one as a fan and one as a competitor.
Okay, so as a fan, my cousin used to play professional rugby. So he was on the Munster team for the 2008 Heineken Cup final. I think it was in Cardiff. I think it was 2008. It was either 2007 or 2008. So I was lucky enough to go to that. Myself and my dad queued at like 5 a.m. on Lansdowne Road to get tickets. And we were actually, like, I was whatever age, I was tiny. And when we got to the desk, Dad was like, it was 6 per person. And Dad was like, oh, I can buy 6 and my daughter can buy 6. And your man was like, okay, whatever. So then we came outside and RTE were there and they interviewed us. And Dad was like, yeah, we got 12 tickets. And I was like, you're an idiot. Like everyone was ringing him, like looking for tickets. So that was great. I just remember walking out into like I think it's the Cardiff Stadium. Is it Millennium Stadium? Something like that. It was huge. That was cool. And they won obviously as well. So that was good. And then been to as an athlete, probably obviously Tokyo. Yeah, that was great. Yeah.
Do you have any non-rowing kind of events on your bucket list? Any particular sporting events you'd love to go to see?
I'm trying to think. I like the European games that we're going to in a couple of weeks, like has other sports. So it would be great if we could get into like swimming or something like that. Like I love watching the swimming or athletics when it's on TV. So if we could sneak into something like that once we're done, that would be cool.
Brilliant. Question 3, what's been the biggest setback or challenge so far in your career and how did you react to it?
I'd say setback was probably when I got ill, and yeah, I think kind of reacting, like you kind of just have to accept that it's happened and just, move on very quickly. And just focus on your recovery, I suppose, is the bigger thing. Like I think allow yourself, that little pity party for a day or two, like feeling very, very sorry for yourself, but then you kind of need to quickly move on and just focus on the next phase.
Question 4, kind of on the flip side then, what's been your biggest achievement in or out of the water?
Well, I think in the water, probably like, I think it's like a combination of every race last year. I think we performed quite well across the board in Europeans, qualifiers, and then obviously the Olympics. I think outside of the water, I think probably this year, this NBA, I think it's going to be the absolute death of me. But yeah, I'm actually quite proud of myself for getting through it, because kind of went in there absolutely deer in headlights, didn't know, like don't really know what was going on. It was a big change for me from like science to business, and we're working with real customers and real clients, so it's not just like here's the book and the question. It's like we're actually kind of hands-on with a lot of companies. So yeah, it's been a big responsibility and it's been a lot of work. So if I make it out the other side, that'll be one that I'm proud of.
You have a couple of other athletes on the course with you.
Yeah, I do. I have Annalise Murphy is in my class. She's a sailor, silver from Rio. Jamie Heaslip is, you can do it over 2 years, so he's in the part-time class. And then Richie Hogan as well, the hurler, is there too.
Okay, very good. Question 5. Looking back, what advice would you give your 18-year-old self?
I would probably say, like, don't be afraid to kind of dream a bit bigger. I think I held myself back from kind of going after that kind of international, I suppose, kind of dream for a long time. Now, I don't think I necessarily knew if I wanted it back then. So, and I do think the timing kind of worked out for me eventually. But yeah, I think I was almost kind of afraid to kind of go after it and want it for a long time.
Question 6. Who would be your dream dinner guest and why? You can open up the table to a few people if you want.
Yeah, so I was thinking about this earlier because it's quite a difficult question. I was kind of discussing it with the girls, and we were saying someone that's like involved with like an unsolved mystery. You just love to have them and kind of ask them like what happened there, and like, I don't know, it's a bit inappropriate, but maybe like Madeline McCann, and to be like, what happened to you? Like,
that's the first time I've had that one, but yeah, you're looking for like a bit of like a mystery solving sort of dinner, is it?
Yeah, we want to kind of get down to the bottom of a couple of unsolved things, invite them all in and hear everyone's story as to what really happened.
Okay, right. That's definitely a different one. Question 7. If your life was a book, what chapter would this be called?
Oh God, like utter chaos, I think, at the moment. Yeah, I think that's literally me at the moment. I don't know, like, I'm just literally working off calendars, running out the door. Every time we're on the water, I'm like, what time is it? I have a call in 45 minutes, and like trying to just finish out the session as quickly as possible to get back home, to get back training again. So yeah, chaos is definitely the word at the moment.
Speaking of calendars, what's the plan over the next couple of weeks, months? You mentioned obviously the European Games and goals moving forward for you.
Yeah, so the next 3 weeks I'm finishing out my masters. Then we're going to the European Games. I think that's the middle of August. We're flying then from Munich to Italy straight away, spending I think 6 weeks there training, and then flying from Italy to the Czech Republic for the World Championships. So yeah,
really chaos.
Yeah, so once we leave, that's kind of it. It's no going back, no escaping. So yeah, it'll be good though.
Brilliant. Well, Aifric, thanks so much for joining me on the podcast, and I just want to wish you the best of luck with the next couple of months and over the next couple of years, and thanks again for coming on.
No problem, enjoyed it, thank you.
A massive thank you to Aifric for joining me on the podcast today. I thoroughly enjoyed our chat and I hope you got something from it. I'll be sure to leave all of our social media links in the description box below. If you are enjoying the podcast, I'd really appreciate if you could leave a rating and a review over on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, as it does help the show grow. A massive thank you for all your support to date. Be sure to check out our social media at The Sideline Live for more.